edge to W7M if they would have gotten it, but obviously with the way that the bans panned out, it wasn't for them to decide.
Yeah, this is where actually some of my concerns do come in for W7M, just because attacking successfully is for a lot of teams much harder than it is to defend successfully. And one of the points I mentioned was that, you know, Team 1 played here yesterday, they could be analyzing VODs, but you could have said the same thing about Team Liquid on Consulate, because it was the same situation then, and that didn't seem to help much. But what could help, of course, is the operator bans. This is the first time in what feels like a while that we've had both Thatcher and Maverick be banned out, so kind of gone back to the roots that have been you know, moved away from in recent play days. And W7M for their second one, just adding on a Kaid to the mix.
Yeah, we're getting towards some sort of semblance of what we used to expect a lot of in Siege, and that's the standard Thatcher Maverick Kaid ban. But it is going to be a Valkyrie ban, who is the almost new and in vogue operator to be banning out. Seeing a heck of a lot of Valkyrie banned out here in Latin America. Obviously, cameras, C4, impact grenades, a lot of ticks in a lot of people's boxes. It is going to mean that we have things like oNe available, oNe, Jaeger, all the people that we would expect to see eating up a ton of utility. And as if by magic, we are already going to get at least 2 of those, alongside an interesting Warden pick. Now, Warden's someone that I've been kind of critical of in the past, but seeing the way that these teams here use it, I actually quite like it. And because I've said anything about the operator, he has been 6-picked from.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Happens.
Well, they've 6-picked onto an operator who is ridiculously popular in Brazil, and that is Goyo. And the only, I think I said this back on Playday number 3, but the only other specific region that I can think of that loves Goyo as much as Brazil is Russia. Russian teams also love Goyo. You always see Team Empire and Virtus.pro ban him, play him, whatever the hell, over in EU. Same here in Brazil. They just love Goyo. And it's really, really useful as well, not only because we all know that shields are great utility to have in this game, but a lot of these teams, especially in this part of the leaderboard, have not been too effective at clearing those kinds of things. So if you can put up stuff that the attackers are going to suck at removing, that's just going to put you in an even better position. Plus, you have the opportunity to play with C4s, and because we know that, for example, attacking onto the meeting hatch on this site has been really popular, you just throw a C4 up there, maybe you're going to get a kill, maybe you'll get 2. At the very least, you'll push some of those attackers away.
Yeah, it is something that we've seen be quite a trend, as that is teams often struggling with utility, and that culminates in rounds lasting quite a long time, because we have to get to the end of the round before the team start to push, and then all the utility comes out in a big bunch. Kurtz is rocking the old shotgun sledge, which is somewhat of an unusual thing. It puts a lot of pressure on your ability with that SMG-11. If he's comfortable with that, then obviously it's going to be great, but I'd much rather have him with an AR in his hands if he's going to be challenging onto this freezer, because it sort of starts to approach that sort of medium to long range engagement there, especially for an SMG.
Yeah, it's like, I get it if, you know, you want to just destroy absolutely everything you possibly can because you have the Caber as well. This is not really the site, I think, where you're going to get much use out of that. It's very rare to not see the L85 in hand on a sledge. And as you say, pressuring onto freezer in particular, you want to be able to hold angles all the way into laundry, because that's where many of those defenders will be situated. So that could be quite a struggle for W7M. But you never know. It could end up working out well for them as well. In fact, he's going to be pushing down... Oh, maybe not. I was going to say pushing down onto the tower stairs, but he's decided to head back into meeting. Now, the meeting hatch pushes have been something that haven't worked too well for a lot of these teams. And also, remember, blue hasn't been cleared out. They haven't late reinforced it off elbows, so Team 1 have perfect control that they can just move around like that. Which could be a real problem for W7M if they decide to drop. In go the smokes, and it looks like they're getting ready for it, Ollie.
Yeah, there's 2 C4s available as well for the side of Team 1. Toxic Babe canisters are going to cut off this drop. This is the fabled drop into Electrical Hatch or E-Box that we were talking quite a bit of yesterday on this map, and we've really only seen it go one direction. Levy is in prime position to start fragging out from there as he's got a beautiful line of sight directly onto that drop. The stuns now get tossed on in, and you just get the feeling that W7M are getting ready to drop into that meat grinder. KDS still ability to challenge here in and around these pillars is eventually going to get pushed there by Padrin, but you can see the drop come through and the kill feed light up orange to go in favor of Team 1 before W7M are able to find anything in response, and even then they are very low health. Herd's now looking to try and make something happen, a desperate attempt at a swing into the site, but that was never going to go any other way than toward Team 1.
Quite peculiar as well, as we saw the attentions be shifted in W7M at really strange times during the round, because even after they'd completely prepped E-Box, we saw players go round to blue to try and pressure that way. Now, one of the things I mentioned, of course, is that they didn't have any pressure on blue, and so players from Team 1 did have ultimate control there. You can hold the drop into E-Box from many different angles. But you don't do that at 20 seconds left of the round. It's very hard to do much effective with that time. That is something that you need to have prepped earlier on in the round. At the very least, force Team 1 to have late reinforced off the elbow wall so that you know that space is yours. And then if you have pillar control, which you should, you have a lot more room of freedom to make that drop. That's not something that W7M did either correctly or at all. It looked like they had a kind of idea of what they should be doing, but not necessarily the how.
It's a big shame as well, because we've seen quite a lot of soft pushes here on Oregon over the course of the weekend. And what I mean by that is just the utility being so heavily stacked in the defender favor, because they've got C4s, smoke canisters, everything at their disposal. And the attackers just left to try and soak all that up in a very short period of time. I'd really like to see teams trying to bait more of that out early. And sure, it's going to cost you, and it might even cost you with a few bodies, but it's something that has to be done. It's almost a necessary evil at this moment in time, and being alive just isn't enough to cut it sometimes. If someone's not got a C4 and there's 2 Toxic Babe canisters that have disappeared and been used, that's probably more valuable than having all 5 attackers alive in those final 10 seconds when everything can be thrown at you. So I'd like to see here from W7M a little bit more of that baiting out that we often talk about. And that all comes with having an effective roam game clear. Because if you can clear the roam quickly, that means that you can then be in positions to start baiting that utility out a little bit quicker.
Really common here amongst these teams to have a first floor roam when defending the second floor. That's exactly what we're seeing. Neskin here present in security. He has the hatch open, so he's got a get out safely route if he needs it, as the players from W7M start to aggress upon him. And we saw Herds very close by. Kurt's also throwing in a nade, but Neskin gets 1 kill straight onto him before making his route out. I'd say that was a win there for Team 1, as not only have W7M lost a man, but they also lost utility too and let 1 go.
Selma's now being deployed on this ground floor in an attempt to try and gain a bit more control, but W7M don't seem to be working off a great deal of intel at the moment. They've got plenty of drones still alive and out there, but it doesn't seem as though they know the location or the exact whereabouts of all of these defenders. And as we approach that final minute, that isn't something that you can afford to not understand or have at least a grasp of. We can see that a lot of the defenders are upstairs inside of the site, whether that's going to be dormitories or bunk beds. They're up there. They're not in positions to make these fanciful roams that W7M are anticipating here.
A lot of silence and waiting. He is just trying to hold the angle up into the kid's hatch, while the other players of the team are sort of getting into position. We have Panico on the ace taking control of big window, which is very typically where you would see a Zafir want to position, but they don't actually have a Zafir on their team. And they are starkly running out of time. The games room wall isn't open. That's really crucial because it means that games room position can be held by the defenders. Anyone coming in through big window, even attic or white stairs, is going to be severely at risk.
Padron going to lead in with a grenade now and see if he can do any damage. I think he may have got a shield and has at least got rid of a C4 in the process. Smoking now going in on the big window, but it isn't going to be enough. Herds manages to find that kill as he pushes his way up through white. The diffuser cold on the ground. Herds now down and Guy with a lot to do. Once again, a one-dimensional push coming out from this W7M team and Team 1 capitalizing on it.
Yeah, not getting those walls open was simply disastrous. I'm actually not sure if they got the attic wall open or even went there at all. It didn't look like it to me, but I may have missed it, so I don't want to say for absolute sure, but what we do know for absolute certain is that the games room wall didn't get opened. That is unforgivable. You simply cannot attack onto that top floor without getting that open. And yeah, you wanted to go for the roam clear, you wanted to try and clear out those down below. I think it's a good thing that they're not ignoring that, because we've seen things happen to teams who do just ignore a roam clear. But you have to have the attention be paid to those key parts at the same time. And, my suspicion is probably that they just couldn't get it open. Maybe there was a mute jammer on it or something like that. The Selmas couldn't be placed, but they couldn't put a guy in classroom to clear them out from below because of the roamers that the defenders had on the first floor. So it really is a difficult situation for W7M. And the reason I suspect that is because we saw the ace go round to big window, which is not a traditional place for an ace to be positioned on the attack. So it's sort of the kind of snake eating its own tail negative feedback loop, because you want to clear the roamers so that you can open up the wall, but you don't have the wall opened up, so you can't make any headway despite the fact that there are roamers, and all in all, you achieve nothing. And that is the score that W7M are currently at.
And it is a shame, right? Because there's a way of just avoiding those roamers and focusing on getting key walls open and then worrying about it later. There's even operators that you can look to bring. Gridlock, Nomad. These are things that can help assist in, if you're worried about that roam game, setting up those drones as flank watchers. There's always more than one answer in Siege, and that's why it's such a beautiful and deep game. But it just doesn't seem as though W7M are looking to use those other answers. And, ooh, Levy. You know, if Tim would have asked me in the pre-game, and I'm sad that he didn't, if he asked me who the player to watch was, I would have said Levy. He had a pop-off game yesterday, and I think he's got the potential to have another here and now.
Yeah, meanwhile, I answered by saying all of them.
You said Alamo.
No. Tim assumed I said Alamau, and then I said no, I think all 5 of them. Regardless, we have had a kill go one way and the other, and I do like the fact that W7M have also made some moves in opening up the office floor. Something we spoke about yesterday regarding some other teams is when you don't make the vertical play onto this site, it can be incredibly difficult to gain the control that is needed. Shower's control is still retained by Team 1, and that's going to be KDS on the oNe who's holding on to that. Often a place where you might see a Maestro, for example, so that you can attempt to get the impact trick when the Shower's wall is attempted to be opened up.
Kurtz is really trying to make this shotgun fit into the way that he wants to play smoke. I'm not too sure how it is working out for him. Kills have gone in either direction and leveled out once again at an equal 3-3. Lagonis with the roaming yokai drones, just providing that extra level of security and information for Neskin to get out there and cause a bit of a nuisance as Kurtz approaches the bottom of White Stairs, does manage to land his shots and the follow-up there. Interestingly enough, the shotgun working at such a long range and him hitting his shots with the SMG, but you could see that wasn't a guaranteed kill for him there, and there was a chance in another game he maybe wouldn't have got it, so certainly not something to be relied on, and we're still yet to find the answer as to why that shotgun's being brought, because so far I'm seeing a lot of this ceiling intact. Lagonis is inside a sight doing what Yokais and Echoes do best as Kurtz goes for the drop aggressively with the shotgun, finds yet another. Okay, now I'm seeing it. A bit of a dropping assassin coming in here as Panico confirms that diffuser. Gee with the last kill just before it got confirmed as Neskin was desperately trying to make something happen there.
That jump down onto Lagonis actually was really good because it meant that they didn't have to worry about the yokai drone itself. They just ensured that they ambushed the guy who was controlling the yokai drone while he was looking at the yokai drone and didn't have anyone else to back him up. So that was a really, really nice move there, and it's great to see W7M actually gain some points, I guess, on the board. And I think a lot of that probably came down to the fact that Team One didn't lean into a multi-story roam quite as much as they did on the other sites. So what it meant was that when W7M needed to take control of those crucial upstairs places, and I'm thinking mostly on that the hatch in kids, they could. They weren't severely hindered from that perspective. And you had Kurtz, who was on the smoke, really spent a lot of time upstairs. He was playing very patiently up there. And ultimately what it means is that we saw the shotgun work out.
Yeah, we're seeing proof in the pudding that is the shotgun. And I like to see it. I think if you're going to bring... There's so many preconceptions inside of Siege that if you're playing Ash, you must run the R4C, or if you're playing Sledge, you must run the L85, and that just kind of throws caution to the wind and says, well, actually, I'm going to bring this. I'm going to bring the shotgun because this is the strategy and this is the plan that we've got in place. Now, those are kills that, yeah, sure, he could have gotten with the L85. So it isn't necessarily, you know, a good enough reason in itself. You do look toward the shotgun more for that destructibility. But of course, when you bring the hammer, there's questions as to just how much of that you actually need. But Kurtz made it work there and then. He's brought the shotgun once again, so obviously feeling like it was a bit of a hit. And we all know what it can do in those close ranges in the dying few seconds. And if this site is anything to go by, I would imagine that around the 20-second mark, we're going to see very similar stuff from both these sides.
Kurtz heard his drone get shot, or at least the drone that was droning him in get shot, and so he knows that there is a player at the top of the stairs. They've retreated back down, however. He's once again going to be droned down into Freezer. Could this be where W7M decide to spend a lot of time? It looks like he's going to be moving back up, so a Freezer push probably isn't what they're looking to do. However, you never know how they could change their plans based on those sound cues that are leading them down the trail, just like the breadcrumbs. Though I guess the breadcrumbs in that story led to something bad, right? I think.
I mean, the site can be a bad place sometimes, you know. It's you never always get out alive. There's no guarantees. You've got to fight for your place there. So you could maybe make that analogy. I think something that's tricky to figure from the side of W7M is where this push is actually going to materialize, because they're a little bit all over the place. We've seen Kurtz over inside of Freezer. Now we're seeing a heavy stack up in the exact same place we saw last time, which is these back stairs and obviously the electrical box hatch. So it does seem as though they're kind of just like, oh, are we going to go down Freezer? Or are we going to go down back stairs like we're going to drop electrical hatch? There's just no sort of surety. There's no like confirmation. There's no confidence in what it seems to be doing. They just seem to be going through those motions.
Yeah, they are being very indecisive about the way that they attack onto this site, and it was the same back in round one. It was a point that I brought up. And the more time you waste in being indecisive, the less time you spend actually opening up the parts of the map that you really need for yourself. I mean, we saw KDS, he was down holding pillar. He's gonna have to be moved out the way. Kurt's throwing in a nade, maybe that's gonna catch someone, but it doesn't. It could have got a shield, I suppose, and that's one thing that could help them. But in terms of actually removing the people who are gonna be shooting you as you push in, W7M have made no headway in that stage.
At least in this round, as an example, they're actually pushing multiple directions, but what are they going to be able to do with it? Herds decapitates Neskin there, draws for the pistol in an attempt for the second, but does get shut down by Levy. As slowly but surely, we're seeing more orange than blue up there in the kill feed. Now, Guy and Panico, as they pushed in from alternate sides. Panico gets himself a nice 1v1 there and looks to find more. Can he continue his tear? With only 4 seconds left, it was unlikely, as Alamo comes in with that final kill for Team 1, and they remain unbeaten downstairs in the laundry.
I mean, ultimately, I don't even think that it's a case that W7M wouldn't be able to take on those fights successfully if they had them set up correctly. It's the fact that they aren't being decisive in the way that they want to set up, and they're not making those kind of coordinated pushes that they really need to. So it means that they've got so much on their plate at the end that it's very out of their favor. I mean, even when we saw Herds push down from the tower stairs into pillar, he got 1 kill, that was great, but he wasn't prepared for the fact that there was another player there. They had so much time with which they could have dealt with that and made that job easier for him, so that when he pushed down into pillar, it was more suited to what he was going for. He had a better idea of the objective he would have to accomplish. And that's the problem. It's not that W7M are incapable of taking those engagements. It's that they're not setting up correctly for the engagements in the first place.
I'd just like to see some earlier action, I think. Some action that comes and gets rid of some utility on both sides. Maybe both sides get a kill, and then there's maybe a bit of an advantage gained by the attackers, because that site is defender-sided if you look at it on paper, and the attackers have to do something more than just push in the final 20 seconds. Because you get the impression that if a round was 5 minutes long and not 3 minutes long, that we would still see W7M pushing in the final 20 seconds, because that is just their style. It's like everything else has been exhausted. There's nothing left for it, boys. We've just got to try and push on it. And that's what we've seen both times when Laundry has been defended. Now we're moving things up. We've gone upstairs to dorms. Again, a site that we did see a little bit of a one-dimensional push from W7M. They spent a long time on this downstairs roam clear, which it looks as though that's exactly what they're getting dragged into again, with Neskin playing the Goyo down there. And honestly, I'd really like to see them just ignore it and just go upstairs, open up those key walls, and look to pressure onto the site.
I certainly would like that as well. The games room wall not being open last time was a really severe hindrance to their push. I would like to at least see some work be put into that. If they need to go into classroom to remove a mute jammer, for example, please do. Provide the support that you need so that you have the flank watch in case those roamers like Neskin come a knockin'. And take some control in that situation. It did sound like there was I heard some kind of hard breach, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure where that was, however, because it certainly wasn't on the wall.
No, I think it's still in an attempt to clear out this roam game that Team 1 are really trying to run W7M ragged with. And let's be honest, it's working quite well for them. Neskin all the way inside of Freezer now. He's going to come in a head-to-head with Kurtz here. This shotgun at close range is exactly what you want in the hands of Kurtz as he shuts Neskin down. Obviously going to be a C4 gone as well. That's a lot of the pressure that Team 1 were looking to apply on the reverse vertical. Now it may be possible for W7M to do something here because they've got much more time than they have previously.
Yeah, and they're taking some of that to drone out, which is a good thing at the very least, because I think going in blind and face checking everything would really be disastrous for them. Panico gets a nice kill. That is from the big window, so he's starting to flush out some of those players who are present in kids. Kurt's down below with a nade, but doesn't actually catch who he was looking for, and instead goes in for the shotgun. Player on white stairs as well. That's Herds, gets a kill onto KDS, and this looks like it could go in the way of W7M. They're looking to get in the plant. Lagonis is floundering on the floor, so he can be ignored for now, but I don't think Alamau is going to be able to pick him up. He's not. W7M complete those last couple of kills and get a perfect round.
Perfect round out of nowhere for W7M, making it look like what was all the fuss about. We knew exactly what we were doing in that one. Get the roam clear done and then execute onto site. And that's exactly what we saw happen. Much better stuff coming out from those guys. And let's face it, there's a chance that they could salvage a 3-3 half here on Oregon, which would be very, very good for them indeed. Team 1 feel as though their work upstairs isn't done, and they're going to take us back to that dormitories. This time, going to be bringing the Warden. Don't think that he was actually chosen last time. We did see him earlier in round number 2. Neskin sticking with the Goyo once again. Obviously going to try and make that downstairs roam a little bit more successful. And you never know. Maybe we see another player on the side of Team 1 get themselves down there as well with Neskin here to try and assist. Maybe KDS.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one. I mean, KDS, I think he was present upstairs before. One thing actually that I've seen that's been very interesting with him is he likes to save ADSs. Have you noticed that? He'll save an ADS, not place them all down at the beginning in the prep phase, but actually place one later on. So it gives him the room and the flexibility to move around. Then when he's decided where it is he would like to play, he'll place an ADS down. And I don't know if it's a case of him picking it up and moving it all the time, but he ensures that they're coming with him. And that means that there is that availability for movement and that flexibility in the way he wants to play. So he almost has that halfway mark between being on a total roam, where it would simply be very impractical to constantly move an ADS to come with you, and playing very static, because a Jaeger's not designed to play like that. So it is that nice kind of in-between.
Yeah, I like it from KDS. I think it's a nice sort of new way of looking at a Jaeger. We saw he had all his utility placed there, so obviously going to look to pick up and put down as required. Kurtz once again leading the charge on this roam clear, and I've got to say the sledge shotgun has been working for him. Panico got a nice angle there through the hatch, and well, Kurtz once again wins out. Roam clear this time successful, and thankfully he's going to throw the nade up through the hatch this time instead of trying to get it exploding as an impact on the ceiling, and he's going to net himself a kill alongside Padron. So all of a sudden, Team 1 have been put under the spotlight as we're not even halfway through this round, and they've only got 2 defenders remaining.
Yeah, after everything that happened at the beginning of the half, this could end up being 3-3 when we switch over, which isn't the end of the world for Team 1, but certainly not what they were looking for. Maybe not even what they were expecting. Now W7M looking like they're starting to push up the white stairs, somewhere where they did get some kills before, and I think it was Herds that time as well, being droned up as well, so there's all that extra information as to the whereabouts of these players. Herds moves into games knowing there's a player in there, but he's assassinated from the attic. That's not good. It means that that pushing aggression from the Ash is no longer there, but it's still a 4 versus now 1. Alamau all on his own. He's waiting for the player to jump in through big window. He gets 2 kills. But so much fire and smoke all around him. He knows everyone is surrounding him. There's only so much he can do. And W7M even things up at round number 6.
Alamo there with the Gunson on the SMG-11. That long-range headshot was beautiful stuff. 2 kills with 1 clip isn't something that you see all the time. However, it wasn't going to be enough, and a level 3-3 split is where we find ourselves here on Oregon. W7M going toe-to-toe. Arguably got the more favourable side of things now as well, as 3 attacking rounds is seen as quite successful here on Oregon. So W7M now just need to go through the motions on the defence and try and do good defensy things to secure another couple of rounds. I think the pressure really, Gio, could be on Team 1.
I mean, yeah, I was assuming that Team 1 would be at a significant advantage starting on the defense in the way that they did, just because of what we've seen from W7M lately, but also because when you compare Team 1's defenses compared to their attacks in general, my concern for Team 1 now is the fact that they have not been super effective at clearing utility. And predominantly, for me, that has meant shields. And it has meant that when they've tried to make pushes in, they've found themselves face to face with a lot of that utility that is there kind of stunting them and preventing them from pushing. Now, if you look at something like their operator lineup right now, there's no Zephyr, so you don't have lifelines that can be used for that. You have a Yana bringing nades, but you don't have a sledge. Whereas typically you would see Yana be brought alongside a sledge to provide 4 nades in an instance where you can't bring a Maverick, which is what we're in right now because Maverick is banned. So you have Buck, who can provide soft destruction, but he can't provide that utility clearing. It's a really interesting position to be in for Team 1, given that that's something that they've struggled with quite a bit as it is.
Kurtz just loves this shotgun, doesn't he? He genuinely can't get enough of the thing. He wants to play it on attack, he wants to play it on defense. Wherever Kurtz goes, he has the shotgun in hand.
Brazilian
now, the question is, can he make it work here on these stairs. We're seeing Jiggle Peaks coming out, the Ayana clone used to perfection, and it's going to be enough to bait out some early utility. This is a bit of a difference here. We're just at the 2-minute mark, and already we are seeing Team 1 bait out some Toxic Babe canisters just through a little bit of clever play, a little bit of bait and switch, and some early aggression on those freezer stairs.
I certainly like the use of the Yana clone to be able to do that. It's quite creative, and ooh, that was really nice. Just completely coordinated to get rid of Kurtz. Sorry, mate, you don't have the shotgun anymore. And it means the freezer stairs are completely open to Team 1 as well. The ingenuity was actually pretty good for Team 1, so I'm going to applaud them for that, because I think that was pretty impressive. It applies more pressure. It also means they won't be deterred as much in the late round because of the lack of the Toxic Babe canisters that would otherwise be used to stop a plant.
Herd's going to be feeling the pinch now as he plays in and around Pillar. He's got pressure coming in from the stairs from KDS as he's going to take this as a challenge and decides, look, I don't want the threat of it, I just want the head-to-head gunfight, and let's see if I can win it and get it out of the way, and then I can continue to focus on blue. KDS is too smart for that, though. He isn't going to challenge. He's just going to jiggle in and out once again, as we've seen KDS do previously. Turds is left now with his attention drawn over toward barrels. He's looking to try and gain one of those long-range kills. As we can see on the silhouettes, a large portion of Team 1 are stacking up there. A smoke grenade is going to be tossed on through. Herds has a decision to make. Is he going to push on through, pre-fire the smoke, or just lie in wait? With the time remaining as it does, he chooses option number 3 and decides instead to hold fast. And it's going to work out for him. He finds one before getting traded out there by Neskin, but the damage has been done because Panico can step up to the plate now as well. But all the Gonus with the last second swing. 2 versus 1 as the kills flood in. But W7M still on the right side of things.
Yeah, Padron to clean everything up at the end there with not just the C4, but also the kill as well. I think the fact that W7M for a lot of that were allowed sort of without any interruption to hold on to these positions that they had on the defense that meant that they had crossfires for any of the attackers to come in, and the attackers kept walking into them. And sure, they were different defenders at any time that were getting a certain number of kills. It wasn't like it was all just one person. But while we had that kind of creative play and the coordinated push at the start from Team 1 to remove Kurtz, particularly, beyond that, they didn't have anything particularly outstanding to actually push into the site.
No, I think you're right, Gio, and it was something that we kind of applauded at the time, right? We said, look, how good is it that Smoke's dead early on in the round, and that they've wasted, and even before that it was that they'd wasted a Toxic Babe canister, and on paper that should have been enough for them then to push in a little bit later on and get the kills. But at that point you're still relying on winning your gunfights, and that was just not something that Team 1 were able to do when push came to shove, despite having that man advantage from so early on. So it was really nice of W7M, and particularly the decision making. I commented on Herds at the time for what he did, and that was that he just didn't do anything. He stayed in position because he knew that that was the best point of action, to just be that awkward position that, you know, is going to be very difficult to get rid of. Oh, you hate to see that, don't you? You hate to see not being able to shoot your own feet.
Desperate to get rid of this drone, man. I mean, you got the yokai at the very least. And he knows now the drone's gone. He's trying to ping it out. Ooh, the yokai could get shot here. KDS, sorry, he's the one who ends up getting shot instead. Finally, the drone is dispatched with. So there's some redemption of that story. And KDS is just going to try and drone, I think.
I kind of feel like Padron's trying to use the Echo as a pseudo Valkyrie with the placement of that camera, because it's likely going to get spotted. And we all know that yokai drones now have lost that invisibleness that they used to have, and they can kind of just be spotted out like any other piece of defender utility. So they do tend to get used in those more aggressive locations just to provide early intel for roamers, and I kind of get the impression that's what Padron's trying to do here with that.
Yeah, I certainly get that vibe as well. And I suppose because you can shoot using the yokai drones as well and provide those stuns, it's almost like a weird kind of flank watch, but like defender version. I suppose, because you can actually punish the attackers who go past it. Now, there is obviously the risk-reward balance that you get from that because of, you know, giving away locations and whatnot. But, I mean, that's what we saw and tried to apply onto KDS.
Kurtz with the pocket reinforcement decides that Attic is now no longer worth holding. Is in fact going to give it up. Neskin gathering intel on the Iana clone as well. Panico with an ambitious Frostmat there. I think if they get to you at that point, you are probably going to be dead. But Neskin, regardless, going to find an opener over onto Kurtz. Once again, finding himself first blood as the smoke. This time, albeit a lot later on into the round, but first blood nonetheless. Not sure how many of those Toxic Babe canisters we've seen used, but I can guarantee it isn't all three. Herds on the flank. Look at that trigger discipline as he pushes his way on through Attic. Now he knows that this has been reinforced. This one's going to be an easy kill if he can hit his shot. So he only just manages to take down Lagonis before getting traded out there by Levy, as Guy on the flank elsewhere isn't as successful. He gets taken down instantly by Alamau and isn't actually able to gain that kill, as it was only ever a down but not out. Still, time is short and there isn't a great deal of it left. 1 versus 4 now as it all lands in the hands of Padrin. He's unlikely to be able to get into one of his yokai drones, but he is going to try. What are you doing? The plant has already gone down. You're now in a 1 versus 3. His only saving grace is the hit points remaining on Neskin and KDS. He's giving himself some yellow pings, trying to gather some information. He has a rotate to work with here and can pre-fire his way through because he knows KDS is only going to be one shot. Gets baited out, unfortunately for him, by an Iana clone. Still working with this Z-ping information as the attackers haven't done anything about the yokai drone, but it is too much to handle. Team 1 firing on all cylinders. They knew where he was coming from, and they're going that round.
Really pressurizing at the end there. I mean, I guess the fact that Attic was reinforced off completely gave him some protection, but, you know, not enough to be able to see out the entirety of that round. I liked what Herds was trying to do. You mentioned the trigger discipline, the way he came in through Attic. I was amazed that he didn't spot the player that was on rappel, and ultimately he, you know, it was all a bit of a mess. It's him trying to get that drone that was just being very pesky. That was quite hilarious that a drone was, especially in these games where, you know, the lifetime of a drone has been criticized by us quite a bit. The fact that that drone was able to live as long as it did, despite it being probably the most telegraphed drone in all the games we've seen, that was quite funny.
Like a feature-length film about the drone staying alive. The trials and tribulations of Lagonis' drone on Oregon. Sounds like an absolute blockbuster. What a round from Team 1. They've leveled it up. They're not allowing W7M to gain much of an advantage here, as 4-4 is where we end up. It was a tough one, I think, for Padrin in the dying few seconds. You've got to question getting on the yokai drone at the time that he did. Obviously, he wasn't to know that the plant was just in imminency of going down, but it would have been nice to have all that happen a little bit sooner, because that information was clearly there. The yokai drone was directly above the plant spot, and it's almost a bit of a whoopsie on the side of Team 1 that much information was available to anybody on the side of W7M at that point in play. As it stands, it was all enough for a site change, and W7M are going to go, look, we're going to take our look and try it over inside a kitchen.
This is actually my favorite site on this map. And it's really interesting as well, because we've seen a lot in the last couple of play days. Many of the teams in this region really enjoy going to meeting before dining. But in the last couple of days, I'd say we've seen a lot more dining. And there have been some scrappy times where there's been fights over showers. And I believe that it was actually Team 1 who was involved in that in their play day yesterday, where there were these very, very scrappy showers fights. But actually, was it reinforced off? Oh, no, they do have the double rotate. I don't know why I thought it was totally reinforced off. But both the walls are, which means that if Shower's wall is attempted to be opened by a hard breach, I don't think they have the option to attempt to impact trick it.
Herds is looking to hassle here on the hop-in, but Neskin sees a nade put to great use. We saw the utility burn coming through as we saw a slew of flashbangs getting tossed in, and eventually it all culminated in a grenade. Herd's still looking to try and hassle on the window. Goes for the swing, but Neskin holding the angle. Confirms a second for him on the round. Not only making the nades pay, but making that G36C sing as well. That's a nice early advantage, particularly because, well, let's face it, there isn't really anyone on the side of Team 1 that have got themselves into the building yet. They're still getting picks from the outside. Now, as time ticks on, that isn't going to be as good a strategy as it is at the start, but it's certainly given them a nice little opening here to work with. A nade further gets tossed on in, this time caught inside of a magnet, as Kurtz, he's going to be in a very tricky spot very shortly. Wall's going to get blown open by a Selma. He takes a little bit of damage for his troubles, gets droned out as well. Still pressure on that yellow van. Ooh, goes for the knife on the clone, but a headshot with the SMG-11 is going to have to do instead. What a C4 toss there. Great observing. We got to saw every angle of that and the kill that came in afterwards from Alamau. Levy finding one as well, saying, look, guys, I would like a piece of this action. I'm sure that everybody is going to be thirsting after this final kill onto Panico. Lagonis doesn't seem in a rush to try and get this plant down, but as time ticks to 10 seconds, he's going to have to do something. Levy there, finding the final kill. I believe not vertically, as the hatch was being challenged as well at the same time, but just some good call-outs, a good bit of Z pinging to boot.
Well, honestly, I think W7M played way too risky in that round. There was absolutely no need to peek onto the window. And yeah, Hertz learned his lesson, he got killed. But then Guy decided, hey, that looks like fun, I'm gonna do it too. And even though he didn't die to it, it's just, what is the point? It's not worth the risk. If you don't peek the window as a defender, then either the attacker outside has to hold that window forever, or eventually they have to move, or they have to be the ones to get aggressive, and you can react to that. And that's a much stronger position to have as a defender than to try and make that engagement yourself. Because if you die, you have handed that over to the attackers. And so, you know, Guy did actually get a kill for his troubles, ultimately, when the showers wall was open, and he had to run around into the small tower doorway. He got a kill in that moment. Great. But just the way that they went about that, I thought was unnecessarily risky and aggressive.
Could we see an overtime potentially here? Both these two teams were at an equal 3-3 at the end of the first phase. Could be shaping up for something similar, as W7M looked very solid down here on Laundry last time we saw it in round number 7. With Team 1 struggling despite getting an early pick onto the smoke of Kurtz, who's playing the same again to... Hey, we're back on the drone story. Hertz is just checking. There's a common spot.
He's
Hertz wants to know.
now.
Let's know where the drone is this time. It's not there, Hertz. Hertz playing on the smoke got obviously taken out first blood last time. So we need to see if he tries to stay alive a little bit here, because that's been two rounds in a row where Hertz has been taken out of action. Now, W7M did win the last time we saw this site, even though that happened, but I think it would have been a lot easier and a lot cleaner if he'd managed to keep himself alive. So I'd probably guess we're not going to see him playing as aggressively on that freezer, as we already see KDS in his favourite little spot to try and clear this freezer out.
I would like to see, you know, that decisiveness come out from Team 1. It's a criticism that we've had of both of the teams. W7M did, of course, successfully defend this site back in round number 7, so this is Team 1's opportunity to prove that they can make amends with that and change it up, do it differently. One of the things that I mentioned back in round 7 was the lack of utility clearing utility, I suppose you could say, on the attacking team. Just because of, you know, not bringing the sledge. You obviously don't have a Maverick because he's fanned out. Zafir hasn't been brought either. I have been a fan of how Team 1 have been using these Yana Geminis, as we see that be sent down into freezer to scope out the place. But while that was done well in round 7, after that, it just kind of seemed to go downhill for them.
Team 1 in that process of setting up their push and execute. We can get a bit of drone work now onto barrels, as That is likely being held by Herds. As we can see, he's playing behind the deployable shield on the WAMI. We'll have plenty of magnet discs out to try and assist him, and even some ADSs as well. W7M have invested heavily into this position. And it makes a lot of sense because Pillar and the bottom of the stairs are all areas that are hotly contested. Toxic Babe canisters now getting deployed to further slow this push. And for an attacker, it's going to be a point of you're going to have to push on through that before you're able to really do anything, because those Toxic Babes can run out a large portion of this round. KDS getting himself locked in there into an engagement with Herds. Neither player taking huge amounts of damage. And KDS left to try another day. He knows he has to get this important kill. It is almost the key that opens up the entire site for his team. And at this moment in time, he's struggling dearly to get it. Now, Panico, he's going to go on to the offensive and look to try and push on up before players get ready to drop into Electrical Hatch. The drop comes, but so does Herds. He goes huge. Guy finds a C4, and KDS is the last man standing. Diffuser cold on the ground, cut down in the crossfire. Herds take a bow.
Oh, wow, he very, very much deserves that. W7M getting their second successful laundry defense, and it just looks like it's going to be a difficult one for Team 1. But Herds really answering to all that aggression that Team 1 were trying desperately to push, and he gets that 3K. What a beautiful, beautiful way for W7M to keep themselves in this game and even things up once again. This means that there is a very real chance of going into overtime, and one of these teams has to take the next 2 rounds in a row to win in regulation time. Now, it could be Team 1 who does that. After all, after round 7, where they lost the laundry attack, they did get 2 attacking rounds in a row. So W7M going to kids and then presumably dining after that are setting themselves up potentially for 2 losses. That would hand this game to Team 1 unless W7M can change something significantly about how they approached it before.
Something that does need to change here, Gio. You are right in that assumption and that comment. Question is, what is it going to be? Hertz had a huge impact in that round being alive as the smoke, and we've already spoken about his troubles a couple of rounds ago where he was finding himself first blooded fairly regular. I think it's round 7 and round 8, Laundry and Dorms, Hertz found himself getting taken out of action, and his attendance, I guess, in that last round was everything that W7M needed, because it just slowed that push down to a mere crawl coming through barrels. Exactly what W7M wanted, and it pretty much exactly what Team 1 didn't want to go up against, because they didn't have time to do that. Kurtz is able to keep himself alive here as well. It could bode quite nicely, as we did see the plant going down in round number 8 from W7M when we saw this site. Remember Padrin getting himself on that yokai drone. I love how he kept it alive this time. He's actually going to put it in the exact same place. It seems risky, but he's giving his teammates the information. KDS wasting a bit of ammo there on the yokai, but Herds knows better. Bit of damage dealt to either player. KDS still drunk inside of the attic, not really able to do anything about it.
I'll be honest, after that last round, I think Herds just fears no man. You might as well take the opportunity to exploit the fact that the attacker has just been yokai'd as well. And Team 1 have now been able to get open the games room wall as well. This is something that these teams have had serious issues with in this game. So this is good for Team 1 at the very least, despite the fact that they're probably lacking in HP more than W7M are. And that's a lot of X-Kairos holes that are being opened here, very carefully placed onto the attic wall, so they can begin to pressure that side as well.
Herds once again, yokai at his feet, making his way this time back up to site, recognizing the minutes wasted there on the roam isn't a bad thing at all. I love the placement of the Banshee. It just makes things a bit more awkward to deal with, and there's a chance that you could get peeked from meeting as well. Herds once again after blood. He's not really been still for much of this round, obviously feeling himself, and as if by magic, as if he needed any more of a setup than that to find himself an opener. He does onto Alamau. Now looking to challenge through onto Trophy, but this time will be taken down by the much higher fire rate 36C on the side of Neskin and the Iana. Levels things up, but is it going to be enough? Herds has done a lot of damage there, taking out the book. That's a lot of soft destruction gone. Ooh, KDS, beautiful kill onto Panico. Unfortunately for him, he is going to get taken down by Padrin, who is downstairs, maybe looking to use the yokai drones a little bit more effectively this time. Banshee getting 2 players caught. It is going to slow the movement as Neskin looks to creep on through as well, but Lagonis continues to go huge. Kurtz now detonating his Toxic Babe canisters. A lot of information as to the whereabouts of attackers in on the site as Kurtz pulls out his favourite little weapon once again and says goodnight to Lagonis. Last Toxic Babe canister gets tossed out now as there are only 5 seconds left remaining. Diffuser down once again. Kurtz making him pay for it as he's only got 1 health. He will be swung by Levy, but it matters not. W7M are going to win out that round on time.
And 1 step closer to taking this game as well. A bit of a mess there from Team 1, and even at the end of the round, you still saw key utility up. Let's say that they were still holding onto the diffuser and still would have wanted to go for the plant, and Evil Eye on the games room wall was still right there, ready to deny, as well as the yokai drones obviously having been used around and about in various places of the map. The point is those things should not still be standing at that point in the round. And all of the engagements that happened basically evened out the man count at every single point. There wasn't really one team that was going ahead with more losses than the other. It was 5v5, then 4v4, then 3v3, and it just kept being ground down and down. And I honestly feel like members of W7M at this point in the game are starting to feel themselves. You know, I feel like that confidence has grown within them because they are willing to step forward, take these engagements, because they know there's a decent chance they're going to win. And while I criticize their over-aggression back on round number 9, previously when they were defending this site right here, dining and kitchen, because that was mostly on outdoor windows where it was unnecessary. But in taking 1v1s in actual fights towards the end of the round, that's something different. And we're seeing W7M actually do pretty well in those engagements.
I mentioned earlier how Herds had quite a decent day yesterday against Liquid. For all the scoreline was. Herds still did well in getting, you know, a couple of nice flashy kills off there. And it seems as though as this fixture's developed, he's just slowly warming into that once again. He may be going for some early aggression here, but will think better of giving his location away instead. Might just continue to watch it for a time and see if he gets a chance at some early action. Herds, unfortunately for him, is going to get taken out as first blood. Seems I praised him too much, and the gods decided, no, we will give this first kill to Levy. Levy aggressively pushed on through, as the Hibana, albeit not usually your entry fragger, but still making it happen.
I don't know, BDS have managed to make it work for them at times, so why not Team 1, am I right? Eventually Levy does get taken down though, so it has been evened out. That means they will be relying upon Lagonis for any of that hard breach. Now, I believe it was the Hibana that was used to open up the shower wall last time. So Selma's next time. And notice as well how the shower wall is not only being reinforced by the reinforcements, but also by the Aruni gate and 2 ADSs too. That'll make it really hard to push in. Panico getting another kill. That's straight onto Neskin. And so the Yana 2 is down.
Control now gained of Office, but Panico still upstairs. And no one really looking to try and deal with that Roma. Of course, the ward and glasses provide a lot of valuable looking through the smoke potential, as that's going to be the next order of the day from Lagonis. Panico going to activate said glasses and drop down. He's in the middle of the smoke cloud now, and if he stays still, he's going to have line of sight, but unfortunately for him, he must clip out of the smoke or get pre-fired as 2 quick kills come flying in for Team 1. All of a sudden, it levels things up and some for them as they now enter an advantageous situation.
It's a 2 versus 3 here. W7M on the losing side of that, and they'll be losing Gi as well. A great C4 from Kurtz denies the plant, but he's still all on his own. That diffuser has been picked up by Alamau, and he's going to go straight in for it. And it looks like Kurtz doesn't entirely know where to point his weapon. He's looking for those kills as Alamau goes in once again for the plant in a different location now, but KDS is making his life significantly harder. Kurtz gets taken straight off the board, and we are going into overtime.
Taking us all the way. Another day, another OT for these LATAM teams. It seems as though it wouldn't be right unless we had at least one Geo. These two teams battling it back and forward. I don't think we could have predicted a clear win. I think our minds maybe said Team 1, but I think maybe our hearts were wanting something from W7M, and both so far have delivered.
Yeah, I mean, I have obviously been very critical of W7M over the last couple of days, but I'm always really open to being proved wrong because I want to be. I want to see these teams proving themselves and actually having the scrap and pulling back. And W7M have really shown some tenacity today, which I'm really, really happy to see. And it does maybe go to show that their decision to go to Oregon instead of Consulate did come down to the fact that Team 1 showed Oregon yesterday, and they could build off of that and have an idea of where their weak spots were. And I think that it's definitely working for them now a lot more than it was when they tried to do that against Liquid yesterday. But Team 1, Team Liquid, very different calibers of teams, and that's not a slight to Team 1. It is more a testament to the longevity and the legacy, I'd say, of Team Liquid. Regardless, it's been happening pretty well for W7M here, and they get to start out on the defense, which has obviously been their better, well, actually, I would argue it's been their better half in terms of their performance, but obviously on paper it was a 3-3 on both sides.
It's really strange, isn't it? Because on paper, with it being a 3-3, you think, well, it surely doesn't matter who gets defense first in overtime because they both were able to win 3 rounds. That isn't how it goes, but it is how it goes, because I feel like W7M have the advantage just because they can get laundry first. And having defense first means that you get laundry, which means that if you go in there and lose the next round, which is your attack, onto laundry, then you've got to go somewhere else. It really is strange, but for whatever reason, it feels as though W7M have the advantage coming into this because they have that favoured site. Now, that could all change with Kurtz playing aggressively on the freezer stairs again. It's a battle that we've seen rage through the entirety of this fixture. Is the drone going in ahead of KDS, some flashbangs, maybe even a Gemini clone, but this time the drone work has come up good, and it's enough for KDS to just push his way all the way down, remove the camera, and honestly, that's all that Team 1 are interested in.
Yep, he wasn't going to hang around there much, and the fact that Kurtz wasn't present there, he wasn't trying to face up against that like he has been in previous rounds, suggests to me that W7M are also behaving a little bit differently. He doesn't want to get caught in those engagements where he could potentially be taken off the map too early and put his team at a significant disadvantage. I like that Team 1 have come round to blue and are now paying attention to that, because this is a part of the map that we've seen neglected, I think is fair to say, by a lot of teams. You can hear the hatch just by herds through into electrical that is being opened as these players in blue are just trying to clear out that utility so that they can move on in.
Where have we seen this before? Herds playing inside of Harry Potter. Kurtz this time is assisting him in a different location. He's playing more toward near the elbow. We're going to play this aggressively with a shotgun maybe, looking to try and swing. All depends on the information and what comes on through. Toxic Babe canisters getting baited. Essentially they're 1-for-1 with a smoke on the side of Lagonis going in that as well. 2 drones taken out there. That's a lot of information lost, and it's likely going to be a third, as not only, but another Toxic Babe canister is going to get tossed on out. It seems as though there could be a pocket reinforcement to deal with that elbow as well. More pressure now continues to mount. Kurtz deciding, is he going to go back inside or is he going to stick it out? There isn't a lot of time left, and KDS goes for a swing, finds the first, uncharacteristically, but instead gets cut down. Could this be the round, Gio, where Team 1 clean up? It's looking extremely likely as Neskin's gone massive inside of the bomb site. Padron now got a lot of work to do, and with the plant being confirmed, it's going to be oh so tricky for him to get anything done.
Yep, basically impossible. And that's a nice take there from Team 1. I think that was the cleanest attack onto Laundry that we have seen so far in this game. And they really knew what they were about and what they were attempting to do. That means now that if Team 1 win round number 14 as they switch over to the defense, then this is going to be their game. However, if they lose it, then we go into max OT and they scrap it out in round number 15. Team 1 also deciding that they would like to head down to the basement. And if we have a look at the first half of this game, Team 1 did indeed win both of their Laundry defenses. That was back in round number 1 and round number 4. And on neither time did W7M even manage to get any attempt at a plant down. So pretty good when you look at the records of it for Team 1. Both teams are going to be implementing a 6-pick as Team 1 tease the mirror, but bring in the Warden. Meanwhile, W7M tease the Capitao, but instead are going to bring in the Monty.
That could be the round right there that wins the game for Team 1, because we haven't seen this site successfully won by an attacker so far tonight. We have, obviously, every confidence that W7M are going to be able to win this site, but based on what we've seen, which has been soft one-dimensional pushes, it's going to be quite difficult for them. It's been a while since they've been on the attacking side of things as well. They've opted for a Monty, which speaks to quite a concise push anyway. And we've seen them try this both ways. We've seen pressure coming in through Laundry, Freezer, and in through Blue, and that hasn't necessarily worked for W7M. We've seen them go with a direct approach as well. And where will this Monty be deployed? If you bring a Monty, I've always said, Gio, you've got a plan.
You would hope so. And I hope that W7M do as well. It'd be interesting to see how Team 1 do deal with that, because it was a 6-pick, so it's not something that they would have been expecting from the get-go. However, by this point, they would have heard the Monty, so they'll know that he's going to be out there. And all 4 of them, or 4 of them, not all 4 of them, are out in blue, using the smokes as a shield so that they can push in, and they're going to be making it, but Neskin, he gets that first opening kill. Lagonis is going to back into the site. I'm wondering if this is when they'll late reinforce, as a lot of damage has been taken by these players on either side. KDS gets the next kill onto Herds, a second one onto Guy as well. Makes things look not so great for W7M.
Things looking pretty dire when you're in a 2 versus 4 and one of that 2 is a Monty. It's never going to be an easy task. Sure, you're a human drone and you can ping and give information, but aside from that, a large part of the frags is now going to be on Padron's shoulders. This could be game deciding here as well, as Team 1 are, of course, on a match point. That concise push really hasn't worked out too well for W7M. They kind of lost a lot of those really key, important gunfights, only finding 1 kill onto KDS in return. Alamau has still got some utility left as well, no doubt, along with some C4s available in the hands of Neskin. This by no means is going to be an easy feat. Time is taken now to figure out exactly what the plan is. Panico can Z-ping till his heart's content, but the reality is, what is he going to be able to achieve with that information? Panico also has that important diffuser, so Panico can't even look to try and sneak that down, as soon as he drops his shield, he is likely going to be shot. Padron, ooh, just misses out there on the headshot. Going to go for the smoke and plant and see if it can be snuck under the noses of the players on the side of Team 1, but not today. Alamau and Neskin come up trumps with 1 kill apiece, and that round ends going in Team 1's favour, which also, coincidentally, gives them the game.
It came very, very close, and I think W7M really showed some flashes of brilliance in that game, but ultimately Team 1 taking it in overtime is all they needed to do. You only have a very limited number of rounds in order to make that work, and it was a risk to try and run the Monty strategy, and when that rush into blue didn't work for W7M, you could tell they didn't necessarily have a contingency plan for